Hey bub, you know what time it is? It's time to review a movie. What's going on, everybody? This is Greg Morass from Higher Function Productions, and we've got another review for you here today. We're going to be talking about X-Men Apocalypse. I'm going to try to talk about certain things in the movie that I liked, certain things that I didn't like, and also some things to consider if you're a parent or considering watching this movie with your family or with your kids. I'm going to try to avoid any specific plot details or anything that might spoil the movie for you guys, so we'll just get that out of the way. Now we're going to get into what was good about X-Men Apocalypse. Bryan Singer directing. Now, Bryan Singer has directed about 4 X-Men movies now. The first X-Men movie, X2, X-Men United, X-Men Days of Future Past, which came out 2 years ago, and now X-Men Apocalypse. So yeah, he's been doing this for a reasonable amount of time, and this is kind of what I'd like to call Days of Future Past 2. I mean, everything that Bryan Singer fixed with Days of Future Past has been carried over into Apocalypse, and this is kind of like the second part of his fixing of the X-Men universe. And honestly, he does such a good job with these characters, the environments, using their powers and utilizing them. So yeah, like, I trusted Bryan Singer very, very much with this project, and he did not let me down. Another good thing about this movie, I'd have to say, is the casting. Like, the new actors that are coming in to take on the roles of these old mutants. Like, we've got people like Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler. They're all being played by new people now. And honestly, these kids that are playing the young version of these old X-Men that we've seen like 15 years ago, I can look at them and just be like, oh yeah, I know who that is. You know, it's perfect. And I think that they did a really good job with the casting, and I really, really appreciate of them trying to keep the spirit of those old movies alive with this new cast. The movie has really, really good action sequences. I definitely appreciate that. This was a very, very good ending to the First Class series, which is First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse. For the ending of a series that began with First Class, this was the perfect way that they could have ended it, and I was very, very satisfied with the final result. Like, the final product is a very, very well-rounded trilogy. The characters in X-Men Apocalypse had a great job working with some dynamics, and, you know, honestly, they had good character arcs throughout the film. Another one that I really liked was Quicksilver. I mean, Quicksilver, like, was the total scene stealer for X-Men Days of Future Past with that one scene that he did, and yeah, he's got another one in this movie, and I'm pretty sure if you've watched the trailers, you've only seen, like, 1% of it. But yeah, like, I heard that it took about 3 months to film it, and it was 3 months well spent, because that scene looks amazing. I'm not going to tell you specifically what it is, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. Honestly, Quicksilver was great, and I like the fact that they utilized his powers a lot more in this movie than they did in Days of Future Past, and I really, really appreciate that. And also, Nightcrawler. Like, the kid that they got to play Nightcrawler, I feel like they basically just found Alan Cumming, shrunk him down, and, like, you know, like, painted him blue again and did the whole, like, thing from X-Men 2 again, and they gave it to this kid, and he filled it perfectly. Like, wow. Like, that was amazing. Like, he was just, and yeah, they used his powers very, very well in this film. That's what I love so much about Bryan Singer's X-Men films. Like, every character has a role, has a part to play, has a power that they can use, and they all do it very, very well. Like, there's nobody's powers that are underused or underutilized, and yeah, I think that that's what makes his X-Men movies specifically very, very well-rounded. And now for the things that I didn't think were so good about X-Men Apocalypse. By no stretch is it a perfect movie. It is a great film. Maybe not the best X-Men film, but definitely a great film that stands on its own amongst really, really good ones like X-Men 2, Days of Future Past, X-Men First Class. There were no colorful costumes that I really was hoping Bryan Singer would do. I mean, this one took place in the 80s where there was so much colorful costumes. I mean, they had colorful clothes, but you could have stuck them in their costumes. I mean, X-Men First Class, they did a great job with the colorful costumes for, you know, the missile crisis and whatnot. Like, they were a team, they were united, they had uniforms, but we don't have that. Like, every single Bryan Singer movie with the X-Men, they're just in, like, black, like, body armor. It just seems so weird. It kind of, like, took away from the whole, you know, comic book universe that I'm so used to, like reading the comic books and whatnot. Like, I'm used to seeing people in spandex and colored costumes, but we didn't get to see that this time. But oh well, you know. One thing I will say though is that Fox is definitely learning, and they're definitely gonna be sticking more colorful elements in their movies in the future. So I'm glad that they're learning and they're evolving. But yeah, like, just come on, just give them some color. I mean, come on. Apocalypse has somewhat of a repetitive plot. I mean, if you've seen X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, Apocalypse kind of has the same general plot. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the movie is bad in any way. I know a lot of people that are reviewing this movie and saying that it is like terrible, the worst X-Men film ever. Have you seen The Last Stand? Have you seen X-Men Origins Wolverine? No. This is not the worst X-Men film ever made. A lot of people are saying it's nothing special, it wasn't anything new, it didn't take risks. But yeah, a lot of the Marvel movies are like that now. They're formulaic. They have a certain setup, a certain beginning, a middle, and end. But that's how these movies work. And honestly, the fact that they stayed to that and didn't do anything too drastic is why I thought the movie worked. I mean, you know, you can't get mad for making something that you're expecting anyway. I mean, just because it wasn't exactly the way that it panned out for you, I don't think it's any reason to bash the movie. Like, the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes right now are not doing this film justice, and I really feel that people should reconsider and have a heart. And I think just look at this film from a technical aspect. I mean, I know that I could not have made a movie that well-rounded with my experience. So yes, kudos to you, Bryan Singer. You've made 4 amazing X-Men films. I'm hoping that you can maybe stick around for a couple more. But yeah, I thought it was great. Repetitive plot, but it didn't kill the movie for me. One other thing that I didn't like too much about the film was that there was not enough Blue Mystique. Although I can't understand that. I mean, she was on the news 10 years ago in the blue suit, and she did almost kill a guy on TV. So I think she kind of wants to keep herself hidden. I do think they could have used her a little bit more, but yeah, it's understandable. And yeah, another thing, they could have made Wolverine's cameo a little bit longer and a little bit more fleshed out. But yeah, I understand that they only had a couple of weeks to do the reshoots in Vancouver, and Hugh Jackman could only be there for a couple of days, so his cameo is it's not a super short one, but I do think that they could have put him in the movie a little bit more to sell it, because I think that's one reason that a lot of people love Days of Future Past, is because it was following Wolverine a little bit more, and the other X-Men films, like, he's at the center of almost every single one. So this one, which didn't focus on him a whole lot, it had a whole lot of people going, well, what's going on? Who am I supposed to be following? Like, what's the deal here? So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's all the bad points I have about this movie. Now on to the family guide, or things to consider if you're a parent considering taking your children to this film. First and foremost, yes, violence. This movie is pretty violent. I'd give it about 3.5 out of 5 in terms of violence. The most violent scene, I'd have to say, is Wolverine's cameo. So if you are going to be taking your kids, I wouldn't recommend any kid younger than 11 maybe going to see this film, because it gets pretty intense, and although it is comic book violence, there is a fair bit amount of blood. Not super gory, but yeah, there's blood in this film. So if you're a parent and you're a little sensitive about that, I highly recommend you, if your kids are a little bit younger than 11, you might want to keep them at home for this one. Language. I don't think there's any language or issues with this movie that need to be addressed. There is one use of the F word, but again, it's one use. Every PG-13 movie is allowed to have at least one, so don't let it distract from the movie too much. It happens, and you move on, but I don't think it kills the movie for you guys. Things to talk about with your kids after the movie's over. Professor X and Magneto. Just in case you didn't know this, Professor X and Magneto, Stan Lee specifically said that he modeled their characters after 2 people, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. is supposed to be Professor X. Malcolm X is supposed to be Magneto with the radical, we can't live in peace. We need to, evoke change in our own, whereas, Professor X is saying, no, we can live in peace. Everyone deserves a second chance. I see the goodness in humanity. That is something very much that you can address with children, especially the fact that, there's A lot of kids right now that are being bullied or that don't get along with their friends at school, or like there's cliques or whatnot. You know, do you side with Professor X and decide, you know, we can live in harmony, we can work past our differences, you know, we can be civil about things? Or do you choose to be like Magneto and just decide that, you know, the whole world's against you, that, you know, this method of, you know, seeing the good of people doesn't work? You know, I think that's something that kids can definitely learn from seeing these two characters interact, particularly in this movie. That whole element of having power equals control, that is another thing to address. I mean, kids, when they're going to school or whatnot, or growing up, you know, usually learn that the teacher is in control, that the teacher has the power, and then next thing you know, when they're asked to, you know, to take charge or to have initiative, you know, does that mean that they have the power, or what does that mean? You know, what happens when you're in control and, like, you know, all eyes are on you and you have to be called upon to make a difference? Another element to talk about is being united, because the X-Men just, well, in every film, you know, they have to come together and defeat this enemy together, because if they don't work together, of course they're going to fail. You know, the element of teamwork is there, and it's also something to talk with kids about it. Are you going to try to do things on your own, or are you going to be relying on your friends or family or people that you trust to help you get through a hard situation? Another element in X-Men is racism, and, you know, just embracing those who are different. I mean, embracing people that are different, you know, mutants and humans, can they live together, you know, strong versus weak, you know, people that have the opportunity to live together. That's definitely something that that I think kids should address, especially kids who are figuring this out for the first time. I mean, you know, no one's really born to learn, you know, that someone's different or that someone doesn't belong. You know, you're taught that over time. Another element is standing up for what you believe in and being brave even though when times are tough. That's a big element that goes throughout this film. We've got a lot of kids that are going to school, to Xavier's school, who are being called upon now to fight because there is this giant threat that is approaching them. I mean, when it comes time to it, and, you know, when it gets down to it, and you are called upon to do something big, are you going to be brave? Are you going to be strong and stand up for what you believe in? Or are you going to just fall back and just let everything run its course? I definitely think kids need to know what it means to be a leader, or to step up against, you know, or to stand up for what they believe is right. That definitely is something that I think kids should address. So all in all, X-Men Apocalypse, I think, is a great film, a definitive addition to the X-Men cinematic universe. It does a great job with its characters, its story, the conclusion of the First Class trilogy, and Bryan Singer does an amazing job of directing this film, and I can't recommend it enough. So X-Men Apocalypse is going to get an A- from me. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the like button. You can subscribe and share. For more information on Higher Function and what we're going to be working on, feel free to check us out online at facebook.com/higherfunction. You can also check us out at Twitter and Instagram at higher_function for more updates and for more photos from events. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Greg Morast, and this is Higher Function. See you next time, alright?